Welcome to the Last Minute Show. I hope you're able to stream this program because there were some lags in the connection. In the meantime, I will try to check the connectivity. Should be okay, but I don't seem to see it on the live stream. So if you can hear it, it would be nice if you write in the chat application. Last month I talked about loss and disaster and catastrophe these were kind of the sentiments I was feeling, and afterwards I felt quite upset that I actually talked about these things, and my decision was to collect other material in the duration of this month and make a more hopeful and empowering presentation for today. But 10 days ago, Turkey became the scene of another kind of catastrophe. A real one this time, and not an expected one, but something that actually happened unexpectedly and took lives and took the sanity of everyone away. So I want to talk a bit about what happened 10 days ago. As you might have heard, on October 10th, there was a peace rally in Ankara, the capital city, and two suicide bombers attacked this congregation. People were about to move to the main rally area from the main central train station, and the group in front of this station consisted of people coming from other cities. So it was kind of a big rally that involved different political organizations, civil society organizations, non-profits, also leftist parties or other left-oriented groups, political groups, many of which were also part of Gezi resistance that I reported 2 years ago, but not limited to Gezi. And they also had like unions and syndicates and the political parties such as pro-Kurdish HDP and more central Democrats CHP, and yeah, lots of unions were part of it, lots of profession syndicates, including doctors, lawyers, engineers, architects, which have always been very active and out in the front of many labor rights rallies or peace rallies, democracy rallies. And this particular meeting was actually a plea for the Turkish government and PKK, the Kurdish guerrillas, to in a way find a peaceful ground in which they cease fighting, because since the last elections, the previous government, the ruling party's government, kind of triggered a lot of tension with Kurdish population and Kurdish guerrilla, which they actually previously were negotiating on the terms of peace. And so there have been mutual attacks between the Turkish army and Kurdish guerrilla. And in a way, the pro-Kurdish party in the parliament was also trying to plead with the guerrilla to stop these attacks and, to find resolutions through politics, through political means. But it wasn't only in their hands, so to speak, because it was the Turkish government that first changed the terms of these negotiations very aggressively and quite in a way that's it's amnesiac almost, that made them forget suddenly that they had been talking through how to arrive at a peaceful moment for the last at least 2 years, but more than that actually. So this peace rally was kind of a civil demand on the citizens' part, on the concerned citizens' part, to stop fighting and find a change, find a resolution by political means, by dialogue, by civil society. And so even before the rally started, these two suicide bombers attacked in a couple of seconds apart in the two different points in the midst of the crowd, and the bombs they used were quite lethal, and they were enhanced, so to speak, with small metal balls. So not only by the effect of the explosion, but also by the scattering of these small metal pieces, the bombs killed right now more than 100 people, but there are like more than 400 or 500 injured in the hospitals, and some of them, most of them are in critical condition. So we actually don't even know, we won't know the exact number of people that we lost in this massacre. And this is the biggest massacre that happened in the history of Republic. Massacre by bombing in this kind of attack. So see, it's very hard to even organize the memory, the recollection of this thing. So at first everyone was quite shocked, and we couldn't know why we couldn't understand why such a rally should be attacked, because it's not a rally that involved only one political party, let's say. It's not like an attack in that sense, but at the same time, of course, it's a rally in which, you know, leftist people were part of, people that really wanted the peace and equality to come. And it wasn't hard for us to remember the massacre in Suruç that happened in July. In this bombing, it's also a suicide bombing attack. 34 young people, they were students or members of young socialist organization. They were actually bringing toys and clothing to the children of Kobane in a way to help their recuperation after the war. And they were passing by Suruç, and they wanted to make a press statement, and it happened. The bombing happened in that moment, when all of the group came together in this small cultural center, and it was revealed that the bomber was an ISIS sympathizant, an ISIS member. It's a bit blurred because the attacker was a Turkish citizen, and he did actually cross the border and came back. But saying that this is an ISIS attack was a bit of a stretch, actually. But that's what the press did, and the government and the investigation kind of contended with that explanation. Although HDP, the pro-Kurdish party, and socialist groups and leftist people, all of us, demanded further investigation, demanded real justice, demanded like the relations of this bomber to other people, to higher level attackers, to be revealed. But the government of course didn't do that. And even, I mean, in these moments the government recedes to the excuse that they're not actually a government, they're just an election government, a temporary one, because we are having another election upcoming due to the lack of coalition between the parties after the previous election in June. So so they used this excuse to leave the case as it is, because it was these people were not even casualties for them, in a way. So but back then, right after Suruç attack, the government used this as for another excuse. They kind of agreed with the US to attack ISIS, but instead they bombed the Kurdish guerrilla camps. And the prime minister declared that ISIS and PKK, the Kurdish guerrilla, is the same thing for them. They are both terrorists. So by using this cluster, the word terrorists, they kind of appeared to justify their own vigilante politics, so to speak, against Kurds, due to the lack of Kurdish support for their party this time over. And that's what actually lost them the majority in the parliament. There's this kind of logic, at least. It's very easy to see, easy to see for everyone that wants to look. Of course, there might be more intricate dark relationships and dark calculations and agendas, but this is the most crude tableau when we first look at it. And that's, I think, the tragedy, because it's very obvious, out in the open, in your face, and we do question it. People do question it. People do challenge that or criticize that, but the critiques are just in vain. And actually, for certain people, even they this causes a lot of trouble, like when they interpret what's going on as what they are. So they're being investigated or taken in the examination by the police, for example. So right after this massacre happened in October 10th, we were quickly reminded of the massacre at Suruç that happened like a couple of months ago. And we were also reminded of the attack on HDP's political meeting right before the previous election, which also actually was attacked by another quote-unquote ISIS militant. In that bombing, 8 people died, if I'm not mistaken, and many more injured. And it was an obvious attack for the Kurdish party. And in the press, the opposing party, the governing party, AKP, members of this party declared that this is a strategy by Kurds to show themselves as injured, as victimized, so that they would gain sympathies. Like all of these weird theories that justified the violence and the source of violence, and even the responsibility even to Kurds, even when they die in these attacks, thinking that they can foil this party as a completely Machiavellian, evil people who can kill their own. So the political space, in that sense, the discourse that's being circulated even before the Ankara massacre was quite shameless, quite immoral, unethical, I don't know, like quite violent, cruel. I'm lost on words to describe this. But and actually it did touch many of people. It did, like enrage many of us. But I guess the visibility of this cruelty was in a way shaded by the fact that those people that died in HDP election rally or in Suruç, these people were, like students, Kurds, socialists, HDP members, like as if these people are a niche part of the country. So the majority didn't feel the need to grieve them, and it wasn't as visible, I guess. I'm not certain, of course. I'm sure that a lot of people were maddened by these events and how they were represented, recirculated by the hegemonical discourse of the dictator party right now. But I guess it wasn't as debated. I don't remember that it was as problematized enough, at least not enough, let's say. And this massacre, October 10th Ankara massacre, kind of increased the level of this shamelessness, of this disastrous erosion of any kind of dignity, any kind of human sense. I mean anything. Like it was a higher level of that. And even on the day of this attack, the prime minister couldn't give condolences to people in a proper way. They immediately started talking about the election, immediately started talking about the identities of these people, whomever they might be, because they weren't only Kurdish, they weren't only members of HDP. Heavily so, like 1/3 of it were so, but the rest of the people that were dead were part of really actually in a huge variety of organizations and parties. So they immediately brought this up as like they grouped these people as non-voters for their party. And they hinted at the elections, saying that this attack is done, it will profit for people, for some people in the elections. Basically, that's what they say. And what they implied is that, again, this weird scenario in which Kurdish presumably attacked themselves in order to show themselves as victimized. So this is a very twisted logic, and actually it tells a lot about the mentality of those that can make this scenario up. But they were officially said, these words became official. These words became the statement of the government of the state. Although the government, the temporary government, doesn't accept the accept themselves being the state, they have been for the last 12 years. So they became the state in a way. And when the co-chair of HDP, Selahattin Demirtas, attacked the prime minister, not prime minister actually, the state, as the culpable, responsible party of this attack, the prime minister immediately responded that as if it was a personal blame. So it might be, but if he has a clear conscience, he shouldn't have been, obviously. But still, the first day was horrible in that sense. Like all of these weird statements, all of these weird talk about elections, about profit, about identities, and we were getting updates from the hospitals. People were actually looking for their dead, the bodies, and if you have seen videos or photos in the area, it was a pool of body parts. People were unrecognizable, and a lot of people were, going from hospitals to hospitals. And what is worse, actually, it tells a lot about the event, is that right after the bombing, police immediately went into the area to throw gas bombs and water. There's no explanation why that this happened. I mean, so they actually corrupted the evidence, and they attacked hundreds of injured people, and they might even have caused some injured people to die because of that attack. And they hindered ambulances. Ambulances came very late. Taxis were blocking the roads. Like there's still very dark aspects to this attack. Police were nowhere to be seen before the attack, and they immediately came in order to further attack people. So from the government, no one is answering these questions, for example. And so also immediately there were speculations about the identity of the attacker, and the prime minister again said that they were investigating it and it's a close investigation, but they have suspicions pointing to ISIS, but also PKK, the Kurdish guerrilla. So it was also very inconceivable, because ISIS and Kurdish actually are fighting against each other through YPG. And this scenario had no sense to it, but still it had its own buyers, and at least people had to discuss it in order to refute. And actually this kind of upstaged the real questions and concerns. So the first days were spent with all of these bullshit arguments, while people were trying to find their kins, try to make sure that, at least their close circle is okay, or at least trying to locate the bodies and try to bury them, as these, talking heads were talking bullshit. And it was quite traumatical on different levels for that reason. Seeing once again, not for the first time of course, but once again, that the state literally stomps on the dead bodies and throws accusations to the actual victims. This is a real form of harassment, a real form of violence, a real form of oppression. Because when you start oppressing the dead, when you start further violating the dead bodies, there's no more threshold to pass, almost, I guess. You can only kill more people, but in terms of the form of violence, this is I guess the ultimate. I can't think of anything further than that, although I might be wrong anytime. I can be proven wrong anytime, and I wouldn't be surprised. So now it's 10 days after the Bus massacre, and immediately after it there was a press ban. The government operated institution responsible for television and radio and press, they announced a ban on the circulation of news related to this massacre. Of course, many of the newspapers from the left, they kind of ignored that, and the internet was kind of helpful to circulate the news. The abroad coverage of the event was usually very brief and based on the official, so to speak, press release. CNN just quoted what Prime Minister said about the suspect, and some of the news agents, independent news agents, already were researching into the identity of the attacker, and it turned out that also now officially announced that the bomber was actually I believe the brother of the first bombing attack, the person that did HDP attack in early June. And these people, the two suicide bombers of Ankara attack, the bomber of Suruc and the bomber of Diyarbakir HDP rally, they were all actually from the same small group of people that went to Syria supposedly, and took some training and also ammunition, and came back and organized these attacks. But claiming that this is ISIS is a bit insufficient, because the police and the intelligence service actually knew these people. They had a list of suicide bombers in circulation. The police got hold of these people also. They were actually caught and then released. So the police and the government knew that this was going to happen, and they just let go of it. And the prime minister, when asked about it, the prime minister told in television, without any shame, any sense of shame, that they can't arrest people before they do the deed in a democratic country. And the deed here is a suicide bombing, after which you can't arrest anyone, and it kills, it's lethal. And the same person is the one also who passed the law in which anyone can be actually arrested without proof, only based on probable suspicion. The government and the police of the same person also arrested people for tweeting, people for dancing halay, which is a political form of dance. At least it became politicized. They arrested anarchist people for just coming together in a cafe. They arrested basically everyone, hundreds and hundreds of people, just in order to spread this fear in their hearts. But he says that in a democratic country he couldn't arrest a potential suicide bomber, an ISIS member, which actually being the terrorist organization that is recognized by almost any country right now. And I don't even need to explain, I think, what's going on. So there are all these levels to this massacre. The tragedy is unfortunately not only about people dying, being murdered, which is a huge tragedy in and of itself. It's enraging, outrageous. It's maddening. But also, the official mouth, the official rationale foils all of these events with misinformations, with weird justifications, with a tongue-in-cheek almost way of investigation, mock investigation. They're completely far from seriousness, far from approaching this thing in the importance it has. So that's why our perception of the state as the culprit, as the responsible party, has further proof, unfortunately. So realizing that we are living in this situation once again makes it quite hard to recover. Not that it is something that one can recover from, but it's like a very elongated nightmare. And I guess this nightmare, a lot of people in this country have been living in this nightmare for a very long time now. primarily Kurdish people. And they were trying to tell, and it's not a secret that, the Turkish left kind of close their ears sometimes, at least some part of Turkish left, let's say. And it never became the concern of majority. It's still never, it still is not the concern of the majority of the country, honestly. But I guess for my generation, at least, if I speak for myself, I was a child in the dirty war, Turkish dirty war of the 90s, so I wasn't quite aware of what was going on, although, I remember the news. I remember that the representations of that dirty war, but I wasn't obviously politicized, and my family wasn't politicized in that way either, although they were people that, endured the coup d'etat, and they were kind of interrogated, their friends were imprisoned or exiled. But the touch of violence in this way, both quite physically destroying and mentally crippling, this is something that I guess my generation is experiencing for the first time. In this level, at least. In this level of visibility, because it's very much out in the open, and that's more scary, I guess, because now they don't even feel the need to hide it. And it's legitimized by that. And in the society, as much as there is solidarity and sympathy among people, as much as, many of us cry together and go mad together, there are also a lot of hate speech and a lot of disconcern about what happened. So there are weird messages on Twitter, and in a football game, when the players were kind of, holding a silent salute to people, to the dead for a minute, the game, the spectators of the game started booing and whistling, catcalling against this show of respect for the dead. So it was another moment that was really impossible for anyone to understand. Very violent, very aggressive, disrespectful, and people are trying to analyze what's going on in this society. Like, are we in a way divided in two, and the other half is kind of enjoying the fact that people are dying from the other side? Like, can we be that cruel, that hated? Like, how did we come to this? These are the questions. And I guess, yes, these are legitimate questions, but maybe too early to ask. I'm not quite sure about this. I don't know, maybe because it might be some sort of agitation rather than the reflection of reality. I'm not sure. I don't want to believe that. At least, like, people can be so cruel. I want to believe that these people, the tweeters and the football spectators, whatever, they're just, trolls that are being fed. But I don't know, I can't know. And I guess there's a task to learn about it. And the task not only falls to sociologists, not only falls to psychologists, politicians, but to also artists and performance makers. I'm thinking, like, because we are people that actually engage with groups of people, that try to understand their reactions, investigate, and also research into the dark sides of being human and being part of a society. So I thought a lot about how theater can function within such a bleak moment. How theater and dance can heal or helps us to process trauma and help us to give a word and shape to it in a way. Help us to experience it and show it. But also how theater and dance and other forms of performance can bring people that can't come together. How our practice can teach, and I'm using that word very consciously, how it can teach us to grieve. Not us, like not people that are part, that feel part of their dead or that sympathize with them. Not these people, but people that can't sympathize, people that can't understand and conceive the pain and the violence and the murder and the unacceptability of it. How theater can teach those, because obviously there's a need to teach, or I don't know, there's a need to communicate, at least, if it's not something that one can teach. I don't have any answers, but I started to think about that, because being here away from all of these things and having the reason for this distance as studying theater kind of made me think about my position in front of that as well. Like, I am responsible to do something, but what it is, like, I'm trying to find answers, and I'm trying to be more responsible. So if theater is what I am engaging with, what I'm doing or thinking, maybe I should find answers from within that. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe just I should leave that and do more concrete things. I don't know what that would be, but try to figure out that. But or that. I don't know. I realize that I use the phrase "I don't know" a lot in the duration of this speech, but this is what I really feel, a sense of mental arrest. And that's what they're trying to do. The attackers, whoever they are, with whom they have relations, I don't know, but that's the whole point of this. And a friend of mine, who's a dancer here, she's also from Turkey, she was quite sure that this was the whole point of these attacks, to stop life, to stop anything that leads to cherishing life, to peace, to kinship, fraternity, to dance, to song, to flourishing of thinking and we should be pursuing these things even more in the face of this attack and similar attacks. Of course, I'm simplifying what she meant, but this was more or less the core of her words. And I'm thinking about what she said. I know that she's right, but it is very hard to go on. It is very hard to be persistent. It is very hard to think that, like these mental, intellectual, whatever engagements are kind of part of peace, part of equality, part of a better world. Sometimes I feel the futility, especially from the field of academia. The antiseptic feeling that I have about quote-unquote scholarship. It's very crippling. So I think it's not the same even for an artist or for a scholar. I don't think that it's the same. I can't quite put my finger on the difference, but the stakes are different, I guess. There's a very protected area in both senses of the word. Protected as distant and protected as secure. So even this 1 hour speech is very hard to make, very hard to communicate. And I'm not an expert, I'm not a journalist, I'm not there, I'm not injured. My friends are safe. Some of them were there on their way there, and my relations were there, but they are safe. So I don't know how to speak about this thing rightly and justly. I just know that I need to keep thinking about it, and I can't help it anyways. But yeah, I guess the whole point of this speech is to say other world, the friends abroad, that this is not an ISIS attack. This is not something that can be outsourced. The attack is made to a specific group of society that's always been killed, always been attacked, always been foiled as guilty for some weird reason, and the rest of the society kind of cherishes on that or don't even feel sympathy, and the government is responsible for on many levels. So don't think that this is a terrorist attack, don't think that this is just an extension of the problems in the Middle East, because something else is also happening. Yes, we are more and more becoming another Middle Eastern country in which the rest of the world doesn't give a shit. But this event is not about being part of Middle East. This is an extension of the violence that the state of Turkey have been exerting on and executing on its own people for decades now. It's just generalized, it's just expanded, it's just more visible, and they have a culprit that they can frame for it. So they can refuse to take the blame. And they're still using the word terrorism for it. Don't believe in the word terrorism. I'm sure you don't, but still I need to say this once again, because it's still being used in the newspapers of the democratic countries. And don't think that it's the same with Madrid attack, although there are similarities and the pain is similar, I know. But the I guess the responsibility of the government is different in that sense. And I don't know what else to say. There's one video in which a group of people are dancing halay by singing a song from a very important artist called Ruhi, dedicated to another massacre that happened on 1st of May in 1977, in the Labor Day, for leftist people again, that killed like 33, if I'm not mistaken, people. So they were singing this song dedicated to another murder, and they were dancing halay, and the bomb exploded at that moment. That video is a weird artifact, almost a weird documentary of that sums up the political history of Turkey for 4 decades now, and even more. So I will finish my program with a recording of that song, and I hope I will be able to talk about something more hopeful, more empowering next month. I don't know if I will be able to, but let's hope that this would be. And it will be after our elections, so maybe there might be some good surprise, but I very much doubt it. It will be as unresolved, and there might be bad surprises, if any. But yeah, I hope that you can all send your good wishes and good hearts to people of my country. So the song's name is Ellerinde Pankartlar, performed by Ruhi Su Dostlar Korosu.
Ellerinde pankartlar, ellerinde pankartlar, ellerinde pankartlar. Ellerinde pankartlar, gidiyor bu çocuklar, kalkın ayağa kalkın, gidiyor bu çocuklar, kalkın ayağa kalkın, gidiyor bu çocuklar. Bu pazar kanlı pazar, bu pazar kanlı pazar, bu pazar kanlı pazar. Bu pazar kanlı pazar, dert yazar derman yazar, kalkın ayağa kalkın, gidiyor bu çocuklar, kalkın ayağa kalkın, gidiyor bu çocuklar. Bu meydan kanlı meydan, bu meydan kanlı meydan, bu meydan kanlı meydan. Bu meydan kanlı meydan, ok fırladı çıktı yaydan, kalkın ayağa kalkın, biz şehirden siz köyden, kalkın ayağa kalkın, biz şehirden siz köyden, kalkın ayağa kalkın, biz şehirden siz köyden.
Before finishing, I want to translate the refrain of the song. It says, "This square is the bloody square. Raise up, children, raise up." See you next month.